So let's dive into it. The Colorado Rapids losing in the last minutes of the game, I should say, to the Houston Dynamo over the weekend, 1-0. It was a heartbreaker, Drew. My goodness. It felt like the Rapids had it right there in the palm of their hands so many times. Let's just talk big takeaways. First, what's your biggest takeaway from the match?
Tough, obviously, with the way the game finished. And I'll just, straight into it. The play needs to be stopped for a head injury, right? It wasn't, and the Rapids didn't deal with it, and I think really at that point, and we'll discuss it, the Rapids probably should have been up a goal or two because of the way they played, because of the chances they created. And so a frustrating night overall, obviously, because you come into the game with a lot of momentum and feeling good, and then you go out and you play pretty well. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about it. The final third quality just was lacking a bit, and when you don't put teams away and they stay in the game, they start to believe, even if though they're time wasting from minute one, which that was pretty evident. And it's a cruel game sometimes, and
yeah.
Things happen.
It is. Gosh, I love this game so much, but it is so cruel sometimes. Mm-hmm. You're right. The game should have been stopped. That's the protocol for referees. Mm-hmm. So if there is a head injury, the protocol is to stop the game to get the player with the head injury treatment. I think it's a great protocol because we have seen very difficult head injuries and how that can change your career in an instant. So we want to get those players treated as soon as possible. I think the Rapids, too, had an opportunity to just it's hard, right? It's not your responsibility to stop the play in that mm-hmm. moment, but could you instead of crossing it, just play it out and get your player treatment? I think there's an opportunity for that too. I don't think it was a foul, but it was because you're taught to protect yourself when you go out for headers. But it was a terrible outcome, right? Not just for Maxu and what he is dealing with now, but for the team and what that moment then created in the transition. So, yeah, it's not the referee's fault that the team lost. It's not the team's fault that they didn't put the ball out of bounds, right? I feel like there is responsibility to be had, and I feel like there was a lot of responsibility taken post-game by coaches, by players, to be better in those moments. If you had to think about this game, Mike, now that you've had a couple of days, what do you take away in a positive from what you saw from the Rapids out on the field?
After speaking with coaches and some of the players, that they feel that even with some of the losses that they suffered this year, they still felt like they could have won or gotten more out of a draw, like mm-hmm. in Seattle, as we discussed previously. The mentality, I think, is right with the group. Drew, you would know for sure because you're out of training with these guys and you're with them every day. But from what I see and from what I've been discussing with some of the players and coaches is that the mentality's there. For them, it's if they lose, they feel like they should be winning these games. Right. There's some accountability with some moments that they're not taking advantage of with scoring or some being a little bit more fluid in possession, but they're willing to take that ownership. You mentioned, Jordan, that coach Chris Harmis and Georgie, they were available for post-game press conferences. And Georgie specifically mentioned that with Hoffa, right? If Hoffa's not scoring, I don't think that's just solely on him. Is that something I'm not doing, right? Mm-hmm. Or am I not providing the passes that I should to put Hoffa in a good position to score goals or at least be in dangerous position? So the players will be the first to take accountability, that they're not going to deflect that by any means whatsoever. So they can realize that they're missing some portions to their game, some moments that they can take advantage of. But the optimism is still there that they feel that they should still be getting more results, more points, more mm-hmm. goals out of all these games they've been playing so far.
If you haven't listened to Georgie post-game, that is a guy I want to play with. I want his accountability from everything from, he talked about the PK 2 weeks ago. He talked about taking responsibility for that. He talked about being able to, as a 10, feed a 9 and get on the board, about how he feels like every game he leaves thinking, I didn't do a good enough job. And then he has to go back and watch and see, okay, I'm picking up the ball in good spots. I'm getting there, right, with this group, and it takes time. But man, I listened to that and I was like, sign me up to be on his team.
Absolutely. and let me keep going with that theme, because I sat next to Lawless after the match, right, who played extremely well considering it was his first minutes of the year. That's not an easy position to come in and things be seamless. I figured they would, because Lawless is such professional. His mentality is unreal. And his biggest thing after a match like that, where you maybe felt hard done by the ref, was I should have organized the play better after Maxu went down. And that's taking accountability. That's an unbelievable mentality. That's the kind of person, whether he's playing regularly or not, I want to have in my locker room. It wasn't about the ref. It wasn't about them scoring late. It was what should I have done better in that situation. And Lawless didn't skip a beat all night. And it's hard to blame him for that goal when all that was going on. But to have that kind of mentality, and so I'm glad you brought that up, Mike, because this is a team that takes ownership, that has the right things at the front of their minds after feeling like you've been hard done. They're moving in the right direction.